Hello everyone and welcome back to Ursa Minor Sewing. Today we are going to be working on the gathered overlays for the center front, center back, side front, and side back panels of Peach's bodice. So I'm going to demonstrate using the center front piece. And for that you're going to need your interfaced center front lower panel. You're going to need all of your front gather pieces, so these ones here. And you're also going to need 3 strips of piping. And the way I measured those out is I just measured this line here and then doubled it in length, and that's how I got this. I'm not going to demonstrate how to make piping in this video. I'll do a video later on how to do that, but just to save some screen time here. Okay, so I'll just leave those there. Now, the first thing you need to do is gather your panel. Oops. And you'll end up with something that looks like this. Now I've already got a couple of my panels gathered and the piping put in the middle. So I'm going to take this piece that I just did here and I'm going to make the seam allowances match, like so, and pin it in place. Then I'm going to pull this one very gently, letting out the gathers just a little bit at a time, and I'm going to make the ends match over here. Just like that. And I'm going to take my gathering threads, which are of course the longer ones, and just lay this flat and give it a little bit of a pull again. And this will make everything lay nice and flat and even. Just like that. Get my pin out of there. Just pin my center. And just kind of even out your gathers so that they're nice and equal all the way across the piece. So now that I've got it all evened out and nicely pinned, I'm going to run it through my sewing machine. And I'm using a zipper foot to do this because I do have my piping sandwiched in here. And I've moved my needle over, because this is a double zipper foot, I have to move my needle way over to the edge. If you have a single zipper foot or a piping foot, this would work a lot easier, but I have neither. So I've moved my needle over as far left as it can go. And just line it up, drop the foot, and we're off to the races. And at this point, you can snip all of your long threads off. Just like that. So now that we have our ruffles made, we have to put them onto our front panel here. And the way you're going to do that is just literally by top stitching them on. You've got a line with the piping facing down the bodice. You've got to line these edges up and just pin them on for now. And get this side looking good too. Got to center it a bit better. Straighten it out for the other side too. And make sure that this piping piece here is lined up with your waist notch on your interfaced front seam to lay down a bit here. Pin it on. And then you're going to stitch at about 1/2 inch all the way around the edge of this piece. So I'm going to do that and be right back. So something that I did off camera after I got this all tacked down with the sewing machine was I went back and I pulled out some of my gathering threads because they were showing, and that made some things lay a lot nicer. So there's that. The only thing left to do with this panel is sew the top portion on. And all you do is just the same as any other seam, line everything up where it needs to go. And because that piping is in there, again, you got to use a zipper foot or a piping foot. And just get everything all lined up and sandwiched in there nicely. Gonna have to get some new pins soon. These ones are starting to get dull on me. And just very slowly, so as not to hurt your machine. Or your sewing project. Just sew the seam. And you'll have something that looks like that. And I'm going to end up pressing this seam I just sewn down so that this part, the piping and the lace, pops up. And a quick note on that lace, that was this stuff here, and I found it wasn't thick enough to put it right down into the seam line of the piping, so what I did was I just hand stitched it nice tight running stitch along the pipe portion itself. And then what I'll do after I've got this all pressed out nicely is I'll go along and hand stitch the pipe to this upper panel here so that it stays pointing up like that. Okay, and you're going to do this same procedure for the back pieces as well. Now let's move on to the center back ruching, or sorry, the side front and side back. So now we're going to work on the side front panel, and it's pretty much the exact same way we did the white panels. The only difference is we're gathering lengthwise instead of widthwise. So for this, just make sure that you have stay stitched the waist to bust area of your underline of your underlay, I should say, and clipped any notches into it that you need to clip. Also clip your notches into here, because that's what's going to help you line everything up on here later. And pretty much the same deal with this. You're just going to run a gathering stitch along the length. Now you actually need to run a couple sets of gathering stitches on here. You need to run on here from top to the bottom along the side center line, and then you need to run 2 on here, one along the armhole and then one along the side seam as well. So I'm just going to run those seam lines or the gather stitches, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've run all of my gathering stitches on this piece, and I've knotted them in the back. Now all I have to do is gather it up so that it fits onto my underlay piece. Okay, so that's about where I need it there. And I'm going to do the other side and be right back. So here's that side front piece all gathered and pinned to its underlay. There it is on the back. And all I did was pinned it to the underlay and then ran a seam line of about 1/4 of an inch all the way around just to tack it down. And it'll be hidden in the seams when I sew this all together. Over here, is all the pieces ready to be sewn together into the bodice. There's a center front that I showed you how to do. And the same way you did the center front is the same way you do the center back. One thing you got to make sure of when you do these pieces is that the overlays match on either side, because you're going to put a zipper down the middle of this. I was going to use snap tape, but I've reconsidered and I'm going to do a zipper. So, you see they line up. And when you press your center front and center back, you need to press it so that this seam is facing down. That way, this piping pops up and shows off that lace that you tacked to it. My recommendation is after you have this all sewn together, like as a bodice, you come along with a needle and thread and just tack this down to this portion here. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to be putting this thing together into a bodice. So that's how to do all the gathered overlays for the bodice. In the next video, I'm going to show you guys the order of construction on how to put this and the lining together. So until next time, happy sewing, guys.